Well, hello and welcome to this week's Kowalah Wednesday webinar. If this is your first Kowalah Wednesday webinar, we get together at 3 o'clock UK time every Wednesday, and we spend about an hour together just talking about one topic that is top of mind, either for us at Kowalah, something that we're working on or we're learning or we're seeing is really impactful, or it's stuff that is going on in our clients and we think would be useful for you. It's such a fast-moving space that it is a useful time for us to be able to stop, gather our thoughts, and think about how we can take these amazing new technologies and features that are being rolled out and apply them to the world of work. Now, we run these webinars every single Wednesday, and I'm very proud that 99% of the time, they're always run absolutely live. But as you're watching this, I'm actually running a live workshop for a client that we were not able to schedule outside of this. So I've recorded this yesterday. So it is still fresh off the blocks, but we will not have the ability today for live Q&A. That said, my colleague Caitlin is on the call, a human colleague, I should add. And so you are able to add in your questions, any chat, and Caitlin is going to take a note of these so that we can come back to you with proper answers to your questions as we go through. And what that also means is we'll probably have a little bit of a shorter webinar today because I'm not going to do the AI in the news section, which we normally cover, and obviously not the main Q&A at the end. So we'll probably be wrapped up in 20 to 30 minutes. But this is a super important topic, and it is coming up in so many of the conversations that we're having with clients, especially enterprise organizations that are going on this journey. And that is, there is this motivation, there is this need and desire from senior leaders. And by senior leaders, I'm talking about the chief executive, the CFO, the chief operating officer, the C-suite, but also the board. And often in either a private equity owned company, it is the PE firm that is driving this AI initiative down into the organization. And so if we've got, as an organization, this need and this desire to become AI-enabled, AI-fluent, AI-native, whatever it is that we mean, what does that take in terms of our investment to get to that point? And how do we go about sort of budgeting for that? Now, I've put as a sort of the subtext to this, from L&D line item to strategic investment. And that's with a lot of thought, because this is often the conversation that we're having with our clients, that when they start on this journey, we need to go AI, we've got this, direction from the board that we need to be AI fluent. Typically this is, we need some training. We need you guys or anyone else to come in and do some training for us. And whilst training is one part of it, and an important part, it is just a line item in what is a much more strategic program. And so what I'm going to walk you through now is some of the elements that you might want to be considering as you start to plan out your AI program, and then also how you go about calculating some of those things. So let me start. I'm going to flip over to a report just to frame everything that we're going to go through over the next 20 or 30 minutes or so is coming from sort of well-researched and independent reports. It's what we see in our clients, but it's also what is independently verified. And so this was a fantastic report that came out for the third time. This was October 2025, so it's a few months ago now. But it was the third year in a series. And so what I'm going to do is just scroll down. So this was by Wharton, the University of Pennsylvania, sort of independent research. And if I scroll down to slides 40 or so, we're going to give you the link to this. But if you just Google 2025 Wharton GBK AI Adoption Report, you're going to be able to find this. It's a sort of a free download, but I'll share the link with you afterwards. And so let's have a look at some of these bits of research that are in here. So of the organizations that they researched and surveyed, 2/3 of these enterprises are investing 5 million or more in their AI programs. Now, what you can see is, well, what's an enterprise? What are we talking about here? Well, the different sets of columns on the bottom show scored by their revenue. This is showing the percentage growth over this period of time. And so you can start to see, depending on your organization and where where you are on that that chart. So people are investing a significant amount of money. Next up, well, where or how are they spending it? So depending on the size of your organization, again, whether you're tier 3, which is this sort of 50 million to 250 million of revenue, tier 2, 250 million to 2 billion of revenue, or tier 1, sort of the top tier, you can start to see how much they are allocating to their generative AI budgets. And the point here is that if you're looking at, let's say, the dark blue and sort of the lighter blue, companies are spending between 5 million and 20 million on these AI budgets. These are not insignificant amounts of money. This is not, an L&D fund. This is a strategic investment. A way of looking at this, we're going to look at this in a little moment, is, well, what is the percentage of revenue that we are going to allocate into our AI program? And we're seeing companies that are spending anything up to 8 to 10% of their annual revenue on these programs, because it's so important in the future direction of the business. The next one I want to show you on this, and then before we get into the actual calculator itself, is if we take those amounts of revenue that were being allocated to an AI budget, where is that spending going? And so what you can see, if we look at the totals, obviously it's broken down by these different types of revenue scale. But if we look at the total, 21% is going to new technology, tools, or systems. So if you think you're about to buy licenses from Anthropic, you're about to buy licenses from OpenAI, this falls into the new technology, tools, and systems. Existing technology, tools, and systems. So this might be, we want to build out our data pipeline, or we want to build out some new sort of data structures or workflows. Well, 17% is being applied to existing technology, tools, or systems. Maybe you're already using Microsoft, and so Copilot. Maybe you're already using Google, and therefore Gemini. Then we're looking at the internal R&D. So our internal IT teams or dev teams building things. Maybe it's building our own models, but maybe it's building different ways of doing things, different platforms that we can use either internally or for our customers. And then we want to get down to employee training. So 16% of this budget is then being applied to training of your people. And then 15% is going towards bringing on new people into your team. We're going to talk about this in a little moment. And then 13% is going outside of your business to external consultants and agencies that are helping you to drive this adoption and build skills across your organization. So regardless of the size of your organization, regardless of the industry that you're in, I think this gives you a really sort of helpful top-down view of, if we have got this much revenue in our organization, we can make a rough judgment of how much we should be thinking about for our overall AI budget. And then once we've come up with that number, we've then got a rough breakdown of where we might be spending this. And this is comparable with what other organizations are doing. So a nice sort of top-down rather than a bottom-up. So that's all I want to cover on that Wharton report. What I'm going to show you as we go into the calculator that we've built is that this is one source of data. And then we've linked to about 8 or 9 other reports from people like Deloitte, people like PwC, who've also done this kind of independent research. And that will give you a bit of background into supporting the numbers that you come up with. So let me switch over to the Kowalah AI cost calculator. So how are you going to get to this? So you're on the kowalah.com website, and you're going to go to resources, and you're going to see this AI program calculator. So it's free to access. It's not gated. You don't need to provide us with any details. It is here to help you to think through the elements of your AI program so that you can discuss it as an internal group. You can bring others on board in your team. So having gone to this AI program calculator, you're going to see a couple of things that you can just toggle on to start with. So the first is going to be like, how many employees have you got? And so, I mean, I'll just leave it at 1,000 because it's a nice round number, but it does go down to 200 and up to 20,000. If you're outside of the realms of that, maybe you can extrapolate a little bit from this, but this gives you good guidance. Next thing is, are you in a regulated industry? So we're thinking maybe we're in finance, healthcare, for example. And we could toggle that on. Often when we're working with clients that are in those industries, there are additional levels of complexity around governance, around processes, around handling client data. And so that can add in a little bit more into both your internal and external requirements as you're going through this. The next is, do you have dedicated change teams internally that can drive and lead a lot of your change programs? In many of our clients, either they don't have a dedicated change manager, or those change managers are busy on other programs, and so they can't be aligned to this, and so they need an external partner to deal with that. So I'll leave those toggled as they are, but you're very welcome to toggle those depending on your scenario. And then the final thing is just what currency you're in. I'm going to leave this in dollars for now, but you can very welcome to click, and everything will change. Now, we're going to get into the details of each of these, but ultimately there are 4 main areas that you want to be thinking about. The first, and often overlooked, is your internal resources. As you drive AI adoption across your organization, you are going to need an internal team to drive this. And in a moment, I'm going to show you who's in that team and what the commitment is going to be. But too often, companies focus on maybe the licenses, maybe they need some external support, and they don't accurately work out like what is the cost of their internal teams that are going to need to be applied to this. So that's the first thing that we'll break down. Second is external consulting fees related to your change enablement program. So within change enablement, yes, we're talking about training, but we're also talking about governance. We're talking about communications programs. We're talking about executive white glove onboarding. We're talking about reward and recognition. We're talking about metrics and reporting. This is what a full change program takes to make it successful, so that people get the benefits of your tools. And if you don't do these things, then it's just like rolling something out and hoping for the best. So that's where the change program comes in. The next is your actual AI platform. So maybe that's Anthropic, and I'm going to point you a little bit to their enterprise licensing in a minute. Maybe it's ChatGPT, maybe it's your Copilot or Gemini licenses, but you need to be budgeting for what people are going to be using there. I'm going to break that down. And then the fourth, and again, often forgotten, is what happens once you've onboarded people. Now, our experience with clients is that once you've onboarded people is when the work really starts. Now people know what is possible with Claude, and now they've got ideas and they want help building skills, building workflows, building plugins, building managed agents. And they're going to throw ideas at you at scale. And you're going to need likely external help to support that. The reason being that your own internal IT teams are not going to have the capacity, maybe even the capability of being on top of everything to be able to deliver on that demand. And if you don't deliver on that demand, you're wasting all of the opportunity that you've inspired people towards. So just to show you, so this was 308K here, 70 to 100 person days. As I scroll this up, these numbers are all changing. So just be aware that this is how this thing works. You choose these inputs, and then everything that happens afterwards is going to be driven by those outputs. So let's go one by one. We talked about your internal team. Who is it that works at your organization that is going to be driving this program? What kind of roles and what kind of commitment? With a reminder that I just selected 1,000 employees as we go through here. And as you work on that slider, those numbers are going to change. So some things that you might want to think about. An executive sponsor that is going to lead this. They are the visible leader and pioneer that is driving your AI adoption. Beneath that, you need a full-on program team. So that's likely to be a program manager that is doing the day-to-day, interacting with vendors, running the program, interacting with external consultants, and managing the overall project. You are likely to need an IT security lead, someone that's focused on the security side of things, policies, governance, the technical setup, and so on. You are likely to need someone that is involved in the internal communications, someone that is got access to your intranet, maybe Slack channels, maybe is organizing office hours and really promoting the program as you get ready for that rollout. And then some department heads across your organization. These are the people that are going to be rallying the troops and pushing this into each of your business units. You are likely to need AI guides. Now, you could call these champions. Maybe you call them Claude champions. Maybe you call them ChatGPT guides. Maybe you call them AI ambassadors. But these are individuals across your organization. Probably, we typically say 5 to 10% of your workforce. These are the people that maybe love a little bit of AI. Maybe they're playing with it at home on their own. These are the people that might be sort of pro users. They're going to put their hand up and say, well, look, for some extra training, some advanced access, some tools, I'll invest a little bit of time to be able to help others around me. Now, you want 5 to 10% of your team because you want to make sure that for every one of the other 90 to 95%, there is a guide or a champion that is not too far from them. So bear in mind that, and then the cost of, or the opportunity cost of these people being involved. Another role that you might want to think about hiring, because they likely don't exist today, is an AI builder. Could also be called an AI business partner. These are people that are not in your IT team. They are going around your organization, embedding themselves in the business, and they are understanding the way the business works today, the workflows, the processes. They're understanding what people are trying to do. They understand the standard operating procedure. And because they also know enough about AI, whether that's Claude, whether that's agents, they are able to reverse engineer those existing processes and workflows into these new tools. So I talk about this a lot of not taking AI to the business, but taking the business to AI. And so this AI builder is kind of a new type of role. Could well be someone that is just joining the workforce, but ideally is someone that understands the domain that team is working in. So maybe someone in finance that wants to become the AI builder because they know enough about AI and this becomes their full-time role. So depending on the size of your organization, you might have 1 to 2 of those, but you might have a whole team of 10 or 20 of these that are getting embedded across the organization. So this is kind of your internal team, and you want to structure this. You've got to figure out where they report into. Is this part of your sort of IT or your tech environment? Is it reporting up into people? Is it change? Where does this sit? Next element is external change enablement. And here we're thinking of where you might go out to a consulting firm. Could be a GSI like an Accenture or Deloitte that you work with already. It could be a boutique like Kowalah. It could be a range of organizations. But these are people that totally understand how to nail these programs. They've done it before. It's not their first rodeo. and they can come in and drive this program successfully. As you do your little slider up at the top, it is going to change things like your program duration and what you should expect to be spending on this program. And a way that we often think about it is this cost per employee. Now, it's really easy when you start to look at this to think, oh, L&D budget, it's a bit of training, right? Can we get you in to do some training courses? And you might think sort of bottom up, what's it going to cost for those training courses? The way that I would encourage you to frame it, and not just from a Kowalah perspective, but this is what's going to help you when you're talking to any external consultants, is this cost per employee. Because if we think of that Wharton report and the top down, this is a reasonable way to think of it. If we've got 1,000 employees or 10,000 employees, what is it going to cost us as an organization to move people on this journey? Now, you might look at some of these numbers and go, oh my goodness, like, we're not going to budget this, like that amount per employee to move people on this journey. Well, depending on the industry that you're in, depending on the country that you're in, you might want to have a think about what your monthly payroll cost on average per employee is. And so if we're going to say that might be anything from 5 to 10,000, depending on what this knowledge worker type role is, well, the expense, the investment of spending $300 to move one of those employees to being now AI enabled is a small investment for the return that you're going to get. So this is one way to think about that, is the overall cost of it. Then let's have a think about the different program phases. So a change enablement program is going to run through ultimately getting things set up, so the governance, any policies, making sure that you've got access to the right tools and technologies, building out the core of your change program. So this is your Claude champions, your AI ambassadors, making sure that you've got the right comms programs in place, then driving the rollout, and then moving on to reporting and optimizing. So what we've built in here is a role timeline to help you. And this covers both your internal team and your external team. So as you've done the slider, it's going to calculate all of this down, but then you can start to have a look, right, this is what we're going to need internally, and this is what we're going to get externally. Program director, platform specialist, tech lead, change lead, enablement leads. And we've then broken all of these roles down. So what is it that these roles are going to do? How much are they going to be involved from your external provider, and the detail of what they're going to be focused on. Now, this is useful because it'll start to help open up your eyes a little bit to the scale of what is required here. If I think about facilitators here doing training sessions, yes, these people are important, but you also need these domain coaches for your senior executives. You also need these enablement leads to build out a core enablement program. You also need a full-time change lead. And then we get into the technical aspects of it, the people that are building skills, building out the functionality in Claude or your chosen platform. So it's useful for you to know this, because if you don't have these people internally, then you absolutely need these people from external. The third aspect to think about is your AI platform licensing. Now, big caveat here in that we are not Claude or Anthropic. These are very fluid in terms of what is going on in the market as people get access to more technologies, more compute, pricing changes, and also a lot of these AI models are very much usage dependent. So pay as you go. The more you use it, the more that you are going to pay. What we have done is taken a bit of a sort of assumptive approach based on what we're seeing with our clients, so that you can at least get a feel for how this works into your budget. So for most of the enterprise AI tools, and so in that I'm thinking about both Claude and ChatGPT, it's very much a kind of base license and then a usage based. And so for Claude specifically, you get, this is Claude Enterprise, I should say, You get a base seat. Now, you should not take this as a quote because it is not published publicly, and it will depend on your discussion with Anthropic. But we've made a good assessment in that the team price is around $30 per seat. So it's going to be less than that, but it's not going to be free. So we picked 20. It's between 30 and 0, and so we've gone with 20. And then you also have a consumption fee based on what people are using. Now, many developers might be using way more than $100, but we think this is a sort of fair assumption as you're building out your pricing to say around $40 or so for a non-developer user and maybe $120. Now, some people are going to be using more, some people are going to be using less, but this gives you kind of a nice blended estimate. Now, I'm going to give you some links later on as to where you can find details of the Claude pricing directly, but this will help you give you an idea. So just to be clear, enterprise pricing is negotiated directly with each platform vendor. Kowalah certainly is not providing sort of pricing or reselling, but this is just to help you think through your budgeting. So then we get to ongoing managed services. So you've now done your implementation project. You've rolled out your internal team. You've now used the implementation. You've got your licenses. What happens now? Now everyone's really excited, and they're now thinking about, oh my goodness, I want to use this more. I've got all these ideas. And this is where ongoing managed services comes in. And often companies forget to think about this. They think, just turn it on and then people will figure it out. Our experience has been that once people have got these ideas, they now need help with all of these things. Building Claude skills, building automated workflows or plugins. They want a training session for a specific department. Come to our company offsite, come to our office hours, come into our office and spend time teaching people because they weren't here for the onboarding, or they've just joined, or they came to the onboarding and they've forgotten. Come to join us with client-facing sessions where we're co-creating skills or workflows with our clients. We've got our internal Claude champion network or our guide network, and we want to keep them on the front foot because so much is changing. How do we keep them to know what Claude Cowork does, or what managed agents do, or any new features that are coming out? And then on a quarterly basis, can you come in and help us to present to our board, to our ExCo, our senior leadership team, to report on the ROI of our program? And so this is where the real demand comes in. Like, having got to the start line, now we need to really drive this adoption continually into our organization. So within Kowalah, we have a whole framework and a platform for this. We're going to embed this into your Slack, into your Teams, into your Google Chat. We're going to be able to help you to track all of your AI use cases and so on. And so we have a framework for this, and you should be speaking to your chosen service provider to talk to them. What is their process for not just reactively supporting people, but proactively driving this ongoing change and advice and guidance into your organization? Because without this, the early sort of seeds that you've sown will start to wither away, and suddenly you're behind again. So that's the fourth element. So we've gone through the internal team, the external team, the licensing, and then the ongoing managed services. Now you're starting to think, well, okay, now we've worked out what the costs are. How do we then work out what we get back for this cost? What's the return on this? And so we built in a little plan here to help you to start to analyze that. And so there's really three main levers that we see in our clients. And yours may be slightly different for your industry, but these are the three ones. Number one, revenue acceleration. How do we get more money into this organization because of what we're doing? I don't want to talk about efficiency here and productivity. This is a very hard thing to measure. It doesn't roll up to the actual company. And so if you save 20% of people's time, it does not now mean you're suddenly selling 30 or 40% more revenue. And so we need to directly focus on how are we growing revenue in this business. So this is lever number one, revenue acceleration. Now, even though in this example we said 1,000 employees, we can't possibly know what your revenue is and how you manage your margins. So you've got the ability here to add in your numbers. So you might say, well, we are a $45 million company of revenue, and we are hoping to drive 2% additional revenue. And so at 900K of additional revenue, then maybe we're hoping to get 180K of EBITDA, and you might be able to sort of tweak your margin depending on what that is. Hopefully, this is simple enough that it gives you something that's relevant. We very much appreciate feedback. If you think, well, actually, we're targeting more revenue and our EBITDA is slightly different, let us know. But what this is going to say is that we're hoping that this is going to give us 270K of additional EBITDA to the business. Then we've got headcount avoidance. Now, this is a hot topic for organizations at the moment about workforce displacement. If we've got 1,000 employees, are we thinking that by rolling out AI, we can do the same thing with 800 employees or 500 employees? The way I would encourage you to think about this is not that we're going from 1,000 employees down to 500 or 800. It is more, can we get where we want to go without hiring more people? So we've got these lofty goals for growing revenue, and can we get that without having to hire more people? So I would think about headcount avoidance, and we build some assumptions into here that if we can avoid a certain amount of headcount that we were going to grow anyway, what does that mean? And then the final bit is about vendor and external sort of agency consolidation. And we're seeing a lot of this. Now you may hear some stories of companies that have, we got rid of Salesforce, we got rid of Workday, we built it ourselves. I wouldn't buy too much into those. These core SaaS systems do a great job. They are the system of record. I'm not recommending that companies go about rebuilding their SaaS platforms. What I am suggesting, and we're seeing a lot of, is what are the things that don't exist today that they're kind of point solutions that is not the core system of record, but people have got, I'm not going to say, but you'll be able to think of the number of point solutions that cost a huge amount, or you've got external agencies that are helping you with things that actually now you can just start to do that internally. And so this is the third lever. So as you scroll up and down with your employee size, you're going to see these numbers change. And this is going to help you get to some calculation about the payback period. So this was the investment, and this is what we're seeing is how quickly you're going to get this back. Now, the reason why we provide you with these levers is, and being able to put in your own revenue numbers, is this has got to be your numbers. It's got to be you. It's got to be something that you buy into, so that when you're having this conversation internally or with your executive committee, you can buy into the maths and you can explain the maths that goes in there. So that's the payback period. I mentioned right at the start that whilst this is based on our experience, it's also very much based on independent research. And so what we provided here are some of the main sources that we've used in building this calculator. So some research from Deloitte and Google, and exactly what has come in from those about why the payback and the ROI timelines, where that comes from. The productivity gains and the revenue uplift, so what we're seeing in clients there. Enterprise AI spending levels. You might say, well, I'm definitely not going to be thinking that we're going to be spending X amount per employee or X amount as a percentage of our revenue. But this is exactly what we're seeing from these independent reports. So you've got some information there. And then just in terms of how you should split your investment, We saw those Wharton slides at the start about the split between change and technical, and so this is some additional data points there that support you. So hopefully that helps you as you're pulling this together. As a reminder, this is a planning tool. It is not a proposal. It is certainly not a quote from Kowalah. What we've designed this as is an internal planning tool when you're at the start of this journey to really think through, like, how should we be thinking about our AI program? How should we be thinking about budgets, so that we're not going in blind and then coming back to this 6 months later and going, we missed this, we completely underscoped or we incorrectly scoped. So hopefully you've had fun building that out. You're like, right, now I need to do something with this. So there's two things. One, you can just download that, and this is going to print it as a document that you can then just share with others in your organization. There's a tiny little bit of Kowalah branding, but what I would expect you to do is to chuck this into your Claude or your AI of choice and ask it to create your branded sort of PDF or PowerPoint or document that you can use. The goal here is not that you're talking about Kowalah, it's that you've got numbers that you can back up and support as you're talking about your wider AI program. The other thing that you can do is just copy this share link. And so what this will do is bake in all of the calculations that you've got. So if I go over to this new tab here, and just copy that in, here we are at 1,000 employees. So this gives you something that you can share with others in your organization. So we covered a lot there, but hopefully, as I built it up step by step, you can see the logic and the maths that goes into it. I really appreciate feedback and challenges or comments on, like, this bit didn't work for us, or the maths wasn't quite working for how we think about our business, and then we can add more to this program calculator to make it really valuable and useful for you. With that, I would like to thank you very much for joining this week's Wednesday webinar. Again, my sincere apologies that I'm not here live, but I will be back next week for a live one. I appreciate you joining, whether that was live or on YouTube, and I'll catch you next week.